before this movie happens, Chirrut and Baze they're not a part of the rebellion, but they're a part of their community. So they're helping people get off planet. Like that's sort of their big, like that's what they do. And they help like feed people who are like have no food and things like that. And they help arm the rebels in the city and stuff.
So they're kind of doing their own little quiet rebellion.
Yeah, they do. But like, and Baze is sort of very involved in that, but he can never sort of acknowledge Chirrut's sort of bigger picture idea, right? Like, like this is going to.
Yeah, like, he's not as all in still.
Yeah, Baze is doing it for the survival of himself and others, whereas Chirrut is like, we are galvanizing people to fight against the Empire and then restart the Order and restart
also the will of the Force.
Yeah. So
that's another thing I love about Chirrut. Chirrut is you're never sure if the Force is acting through him or not.
Yeah.
I don't believe he's ever using the Force. He's never controlling it, but I think the Force is using him.
Yeah, he's a pure vessel of the Force. And yeah, like the Force is with him and he's one with the Force. That's what Chirrut is. And I think the ending confirms that.
I think so too, but the way it's played, you could make the argument that like the Force is not in this movie except for when Vader chokes Krennic.
Right.
You could make that argument. I don't think that's the way, but they do it subtle enough that you could make that argument, and I love that.
Me too. Yeah, I love that as well. Even like when like Jyn holds the Kyber crystal when they're trying to get access through the shield gate on Scarif, there's a moment where you could say like, oh, it's because the codes are still up to date, they get in and things like that. But there's also another level of like, well, it could also be Jyn trusting in the Force like her mom told her to. And yeah, no, I love the like sort of it can be your reading whether or not if like again, we know Star Wars, we know the Force is real, obviously, but like
that's why I do lean to like this magic is literal in their world, but just the fact that it's not so in your face. Yeah,
but like a great bit of world building like Han Solo, like they're all like Han Solo where they are like, I don't believe in that hocus pocus and that kind of stuff. And for like someone like Han Solo and even Cassian Andor, Cassian makes the comment about like, I think the Force and I have different I think he says like different priorities or something like that. And for Cassian, it's like if the Force is guiding on this journey, that's messed up because a lot of people have had to die at my hand and a lot of people have had to die around me to get me to this point. And if the Force is what's guiding me to that place, like that's not cool. Like, so you can see why. And even like with Jyn, it's like, I don't know if I want to believe that the Force put me here either because my mom and my dad had to die.
Yeah, it's like you're telling me it was fate for me to watch my mom get gunned down when I was 7 years old. Like, no, thank you.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, so there is this, like, you can get why people will be like, I don't want to believe in that because that's awful and scary. Even though, like, within Star Wars, it's like all about the balance of things. Like, it's just the way of the galaxy and you're working towards peace and balance. But in this moment,
but balance, I think, is misinterpreted a lot, even by long-term fans. Because balance doesn't mean an equal amount of good and bad. Balance means evil is kept in check.
Yes. But and
that's why I think it is the Force working through Chirrut. Because even though Chirrut dies right away, the Force, in not a cold, callous way, but the Force is like, you have served your purpose.
Yeah. Well, and I would even say it's not serving your purpose, but it's dark times when the dark side is more prevalent. So the light gets a little bit, but then the darkness still overwhelms them because we still have like A New Hope where the light side does win, but we still have like Empire to go through and like a Death Star 2 that's being built and things like that. So like the dark side is winning still, like it's still very prevalent, but there is this light growing. So you have these moments where the light is able to get out, like Chirrut walking through the blaster fire, like Luke making the shot.
The Force needed that shield gate to be open, but the Force couldn't just open it. It's not like that all powerful of a being. It's an energy field.
So it's still like the dark side is still very prevalent in the universe at this point, and Luke is still, a ways away from defeating the dark side in the Emperor.
If you're getting value or entertainment out of any of my transmissions, it would mean a lot if you would join the Remnant and subscribe.
Especially if you bring it down to a smaller level, like the dark side is winning because of Palpatine and Vader, of course. But if you think of all the people in the Empire who were working for the Death Star to be a thing, I mean, I even have a video on the channel where Tarkin, to me, is one of the most truly evil people because he is not swayed by anything. He's making those choices every day to be that rotten. Like,
yep. Well, you have the Yularen video too, which I find to be a very fascinating character. We saw him in Andor. We see him in Clone Wars. Is just this guy who is so committed to whatever government he serves under that he doesn't care, like what
right, like what advances my career, I'm doing it.
Yeah, so he has no, like, yeah, that's the dark side. Like that's the darkest of the dark side right there, and that's Krennic. Yeah, we haven't talked much about Krennic this time around, but I think Krennic is sort of where the dark side, the weakness of the dark side, is shown perfectly through his character arc, because he's so blinded by his ambition, and trying to just one up Tarkin and the other Imperials, that he watches, like, he lets it slip that Galen's been building this time bomb inside of his, like, the greatest achievement. And
even when he goes to meet Vader, he's like, I'm still going to get credit, right? It's still my win. And Vader's just like, no, it's the Empire's win. Shut up.
Yeah. What a great character, right? Like, as a bad guy that's just like purely motivated by a promotion. Like, that's
Ben Mendelsohn is so good at it.
So good. Yeah. I met the actor who played Vader during their scene. He said that it was like Gareth Evans' direction was just really fun because it was very playful. And
that was a playful Vader. He made a joke. That was weird for Vader.
And he said Ben Mendelsohn was definitely in on the play. Like, just, they were just play acting Darth Vader. And Ben Mendelsohn's even talked about how he loves that he gets to be choked by Darth Vader, right? That he gets to have that fun little moment. Yeah, but Ben Mendelsohn, just like, what a great addition. What a great villain. Like, definitely up there, like, with your Palpatine, your Vader, your Tarkin, your Count Dooku, etc. Like General Grievous, like, he's up there, like, as just such a great addition to this world, because he doesn't care about the rebellion in as much as it just advances his career. Like, that's all it is.
Yeah,
like, it's so selfish.
I also like the villains who, I don't have the Force, I'm not a mercenary, I'm a guy in a suit, and I'm just evil for the sake of evil.
Yeah, and I'm wearing the coolest cape. That's it. Like, that's it. It's just, and it's also crazy because too, like, he's so self-important that cape comes off that way. Like, he doesn't have to wear the cape.
Yeah, no one else is wearing a cape.
No one else is.
But I need this.
But he needs it to feel important in this moment. I love that so much.
Yeah, he's also flanked by, like, the Death Troopers, not Stormtroopers. He has to just one up everybody.
Yeah, he gives the performance of someone who's way more important than he actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's so great. And then to see, so there are two things, and you probably noticed this, two things to watch for every time you watch this movie that I noticed, or at least focused in on this time. So one is watching the Hammerhead Corvette explode on impact on the shield gate, which I think is so painful and, like, so cool, but so sad that all these guys in this moment, like all of the Rogue One crew are about to do, is just give their lives so that they can destroy the Death Star. But you watch the Hammerhead Corvette explode with the Star Destroyer, which is a cool detail I never noticed before.
Yeah, the second I love that because it like shears the Star Destroyer in half. It was just such a cool visual.
So cool. And the second thing is, it's very brief. Both the Hammerhead Corvette thing's a very brief thing. You barely notice it. But then the next brief thing is the green light in Krennic's eyes right before he's just eviscerated by the Death Star beam hitting the tower. It's such a cool detail to see, like, in the moment, like, his, like, eyes go wide as he realizes, like, oh, I'm just getting killed by my own ambition here. Like, that kind of thing, like my own selfish ambition.
Yeah, like, you created the monster, now it's turning on you.
Yeah, like, oh, I could have done anything else with my life in this moment.
Right.
Yeah. And there's no turning back.
Speaking of little details that he noticed, now that I'm, like, building this room and doing that kind of stuff, I always am looking at the background in scenes. In the very beginning, when Galen's family is in isolation, if you look at the walls, like when Jin's getting her bag ready, young little kid Jin, the cutouts on the walls, the panels or whatever the, greebly Star Wars stuff is, matches the graphics you get of the Death Star in, like, A New Hope.
Oh, that's
like the shapes and stuff. I wanted to screenshot it. It was like a round thing with, like, some protrusions coming off that are flat on the edges. that exact shape is on a monitor later for the Death Star. Like there's little touches like that really nice callbacks.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's so much love in this movie, down to all the little details. I feel
like for Star Wars movies, they need like an archivist, one for lore for sure, one for characters, of course, like any movie, but they also need like the wink and nod guy, like, or girl, whoever, but they need that like super deep cuts of story. And we're like, oh, that shape we could use here. Or, oh, in one of, McQuarrie's artworks, they had this thing, we could put it here. Like you just need that person to go in for those extra fine details.
Yeah, that was something they said in the special features was like, they were like, we were just used McQuarrie's art as a Bible. Like that's what they did. Like they just referenced everything from his stuff. They used him as as sort of the jumping off point for all the designs and the new designs in this movie. Obviously, like the originals are there, but I think that that's so important. And Joe Johnston also, they always brought up like Joe Johnston's like art is all over this movie as well. Like some of his abandoned concept arts and things like that. So I feel like a good way of describing this movie is all Greeblies, that kind of thing. Like it's all just the leftovers. And
but that's in the best ways because Star Wars universe is a used, lived in universe and nothing goes to waste and everything's recycled. And it just makes so much sense. And plus also as far as concept art, it's like, well, yeah, now it's going to fit the original tone because you had the original guy. He already did the work decades ago. So it would make no sense to start from scratch and try to match it when it already exists. But it also pays so much respect to what came before it.
Yeah. It also feels like it's born out of fan conversations. And it's from what it sounds like from John Knoll talking about his pitch, it was all born out of like him talking to fans of Star Wars. His friends were fans and being like, who are those rebel spies that they're talking about at the beginning, the opening crawl of A New Hope? Like what is that story? Who were those guys? And then also, I think it's also born out of the idea of like, why is it so easy to blow up the Death Star? Like, why would the Empire?
Yeah, that in all of movie history might be the greatest loophole closer.
Yeah, like way to make a whole movie that just retcons and it
answers a question that people have been picking the original movie apart for. It's like, oh, well, why even have that? Why not put a grade over it or anything like that? It's like, here's why. Shut up.
Yeah. And it's great to read the book because you see all of the work Galen put into. They have a memo section. It's like throughout the book. But there's one memo section towards the end where it explains all the reasoning that Galen gave to have that open grate.
That's cool. Okay, I definitely got to get on this book. I'm reading. Can't think of the name now, but it's Obi-Wan and Anakin right when Anakin gets his knighthood.
Oh, sick.
In the beginning of the Clone Wars. I'm reading that one right now. So as soon as I'm done with that, I'm going to jump on Rogue One.
Rogue One's really great. It's also one that like you've watched the movie so you can kind of have it on in the background of things. So you're not
I'll do the audio book. So when I'm like working in the yard or walking the dogs, I can, Yeah,
it's good. It's really good. But yeah, no, like on the like detail end of things, like just having like obviously there's a lot of like background stuff, nods to other Star Wars and things like that, but there's also just the like Cassian's headphones are just regular old headphones with a like an adapter glued to them, that kind of thing, like which is like classic Star Wars, right?
I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, which I love that too, where it's like then also there's the like we have nods to the prequels and the sequels and the original trilogy, but then also we're just gonna like glue trash together for props, which is awesome.
It's so funny because I know a lot of people like complained about Andor, like, oh, the buildings are made out of bricks, like we have bricks on Earth and this and that, and I'm like, watch the original movies. All they did was take junk piles and old computers and glue them together. And Luke's house is in Tunisia. You could literally go to it. Naboo is in Italy. Like these are all real places that they went to. Like who cares if it's brick?
Yeah, no, it's also, and I think also it grounds you in reality. I feel like the thing about the best Star Wars are the most crowded Star Wars. Like I love Force Awakens, but my issue with that is that it feels kind of empty at times, like and wide open. But like the more you crowd the frame with detail, the more it feels like Star Wars, which is something that I feel like the original trilogy has. And Phantom Menace. That's
something else that Rogue One really nailed.
Yeah.
Just the crowd thing made me think of it. The one complaint that I can't really have an answer to for other people when they talk about Andor is way too human centric. Like the stories are all there, so I don't
Yeah.
really care as much. But Rogue One populates enough aliens that it feels alien.
Oh yeah, Jet especially, and
Yeah.
then all the different types of rebels and all the different types of people you see on both of those planets, and the rings.
Scarif less so, but then it does cut to like the Mon Calamaris on their vessel, and you have the little short guy with the rebel commandos.
Pow is
Pow,
his name.
okay.
He's so cool. Pow gets some stuff to do in the book, which is great.
Nice.
I want more Pow. I'm hoping he gets some time to shine in Andor season 2 with Melshi. Melshi, who now we know him from Andor. I love seeing him in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
That he's just this background guy who's got Cassian's back at the end, who breaks Jyn out of the prison. But when he breaks her out of the prison, he's the guy that gets hit in the head with a shovel, and you're like, I have to think about this is the guy who just like, barely escaped prison and things like that, and it's
like a couple years prior.
I love Melshi. He's the side character I want an action figure for, because he seems like or a novel about. He's such a cool dude, and then also gets to have his moment to shine in this, and in the book Melshi gets some good playtime in that too.
That's cool. It's also cool that they tied him in to Andor.
I love
reverse engineered his character.
I also feel like Melshi is one of those glup shittos that like you're probably like have a good chance of meeting him at a convention someday. So I'm really excited. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, it's not like Diego Luna, which might be hard to get in line for $300 for the 2-minute autograph. But
I've all my favorite, I've met all the cast members I've met from Star Wars are all these background guys, and I'm like, oh, Melshi is someone that someday I think I'll get to meet. That's
probably
really cool.
Especially you go to the next celebration after Andor season 2's out.
Right. Yeah. No, I think I'm really looking forward to it, because you have this. He's like Biggs or Wedge or somebody like that. He's this like
Andor's
fan favorite.
Second. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to more Melshi, which we're definitely getting in Andor season 2, which will be cool. To contrast Rogue One, to basically say we're going to build off of the basic knowledge of Star Wars, which is just the first Star Wars movie. And then we're not going to reintroduce anything that crazy or that new. We're just going to take what we have and we're just going to mess with it a little bit here and there. So we'll take all the archetypes that we've seen in Star Wars, and we're just going to sort of skip ahead on a lot of them, or we're going to flip them around. So you have a Luke Skywalker character in Jyn Erso, who is, and she's also a Princess Leia character as well, mm-hmm. who knows her family heritage, who knows her father is from the Empire, has his hand in dealing with, in making something evil.
Knows, but doesn't know.
Doesn't know. But also her dad's not Darth Vader. He's kind of Darth Vader already on the path of redemption to take down the Empire himself. And you have a scoundrel character in Andor who is this very Han Solo-y. I mean, his first intro is that he shoots first, but it's an unarmed person, that kind of thing.
And his ally.
And his ally. So it's you have this guy who's very Han Solo coded, but also committed to the rebellion. And
just like you were saying with Galen being Vader, but the opposite of Vader, Andor is Solo, but the opposite of Solo, because Solo was I don't care about your rebellion, I want the money, where that's Andor season 1, episode 1, where now he's no, I'm all in.
Yeah. So and then you've got your K2SO, who's very Chewbacca, very C-3PO, that kind of thing. And then you've got Baze and Chirrut, who are also very C-3PO and R2-D2, but also Jedi, remnants of the Force, remnants of Force users or Jedi users.
Yeah, Chirrut does definitely have some Obi-Wan kind of wisdom in him.
Yeah, and then the person who sends the message, the actual Princess Leia of the story, is Bodhi, and who has the message with the plans to deliver to the Luke Skywalker, Jyn Erso, or the rebellion, etc.
Yeah,
and your Obi-Wan character is Saw Gerrera, and he's super messed up, if that's
which is also Obi-Wan. A Vader mirror.
Yes. Yeah, which was a cool thing. I was on the special features. That was the Vader comparisons was something brought by, that was definitely in the designs, but of the character motivations and how he's portrayed sort of like Vader, that was all Forrest Whitaker, because he watched the Clone Wars and he said, oh, I'm trained by Obi-Wan and Anakin. I should have some Anakin in me when I'm at how I act.
Oh, okay.
And so I thought that was cool to hear.
I didn't even make that connection. That's awesome.
Yeah. So no, it's a cool thing. Like it's like a kit bashed Star Wars where it's just like, we're just going to take all the little leftover bits of characters and then just make something new with it. It's like rebuilding new Star Wars ships with your Star Wars Legos. Like that's what
right.
Rogue
You
One
dropped
feels
them all
like.
and then just made your own thing.
Yeah, like it's really cool how it's laid out, and that's sort of in the script too. It kind of feels like the story is a bunch of just sort of leftover bits from all the Star Wars put together into a new story.
Which also fits the characters too, because it's all these characters going on this incredibly important mission, like crucial mission. They don't even know it at the beginning how important it is, but they're not Bail Organa or Mon Mothma or Raddus. They're not the leaders of the rebellion. They're all these more or less expendable people, and half of them get picked up along the way.
Yeah. It's amazing to think about how quickly relationships are built. Every time I watch this, I'm so surprised at how quickly the relationships are built and how strong they feel with how late like some of the characters are introduced into the movie. Yeah. Like Bodhi doesn't meet up with the crew until like halfway through the film, and like Baze and Chirrut don't get introduced until like 30 to 45 minutes in. You know, it's crazy like how like they build such a strong bond, but I feel like that's due to a lot to the casting. Like everybody in this movie is just giving it their all and are just like consummate professional actors who bring a lot of like great depth to their work. Like, and
the performances are outstanding. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of them, if you watch a lot of the behind the scenes features, a lot of them put the thought into their characters. Like I was talking about with Forrest Whitaker, like they all cared enough to put backstories and thoughts into these characters that weren't on the page necessarily. And I feel like that's Gareth Edwards' contribution to it too, because he's talked about this movie being this like iterative, how it was made, it was like in iterations as it was going from development to filming. It was all these like constantly like, let's try this. Okay, that doesn't work. Let's try this, that kind of thing. Like we're just going to iterate this because it wasn't shot with a full complete script. Right. So it was really just sort of like trying to find what works, what doesn't work, and improvising a lot of it on set.
And I think the important thing there is Gareth Edwards, because you had one unifying vision, even if it was like kind of fly by the seat of your pants, because that's how the original trilogy was. Mm-hmm. George Lucas was making changes on the fly as they were filming, but it was all out of one guy's head. And I think that's a problem not just Star Wars, but more modern movies are having, where they say, okay, we have an idea for a movie. It's coming out on this date. Now let's figure out a script and a cast. And it's like, you're doing this really backwards, but then you have way too many cooks in the kitchen. So you just kind of get a mess. Where if you at least have one singular vision, even if it is a little bit of ready, fire, aim, it still can come out good.
Yeah. And I've heard that Gareth Edwards is very much a person who needs a long shooting time and like a long prep time so that he can get on set and start improvising things. And so Rogue One was something where he was doing that. And he was improvising shots. Like at the end of the day, they would have their shot list. And then he was like, you know what, why don't we do another setup and do something fun right here? So that's where you get like those crazy shots that were in the trailer, but that aren't in the movie, because he would just do random setups and like compositions. And the actors say that it felt like being on an indie film set at times, because everybody was just so excited to be making something. And
to be making a Star Wars.
Yeah. So they said that like there were moments kind of like what we've talked about with Andor, where it's like, oh, we're watching a Star Wars, but they would get so caught up in the story and the filmmaking that they would forget they were in a Star Wars and just be like, oh yeah, we're making a fantasy film or like a war drama or something like that. That was the mentality on set. And then like everybody would have these moments of like snap to like, oh yeah, there's Darth Vader, we're in a Star Wars, you know?
Right. The iconic set piece.